Hi folks, Piney Woods Prepper here. As an aging prepper myself, I figure I'm qualified to expound on the subject. I'm well into my 77th year of living on this old earth, and so I thought that I'd share my thoughts. I've been a prepper since September of 2008, the year Hurricane Ike hit. In fact, I guess you could say I owe my prepping to that storm. We figured we'd ride it out, living in Baytown, Texas at the time, and all I'll say is never again. The eye of the storm came right over us. Of course, we lost power not long after the full force of it hit us. We weren't injured, and in fact, our house didn't suffer too much damage, but I don't know how we didn't get more damage than we did. The winds were nothing short of violent, and it got even worse after the eye passed over. Well, the house itself didn't sustain much damage, but we had several large trees that didn't fare quite so well. So the next day we were out in the heat and humidity, cleaning up the yard and hauling huge limbs to the curb. Thankfully, I had a tractor that proved to be a lifesaver. Long story short, I determined then and there that we would never ride out another storm like that again. The power was out for several weeks, so after we used up all the fuel for our generator, we decided to head to my sister's house in Georgetown, up north of Austin, until the power came back on. As prepared as I was, I learned that I was nowhere near as prepared as I thought. But so much for the storm and the aftermath. I decided we'd never be that unprepared again. So I got on the internet and I started binge watching YouTube videos on preparedness. And what I learned was there is so much more I needed to be prepared for than just a storm. We began storing food, water, fuel, and many other items to help us cope with whatever happened to come our way. Later, I got serious about gardening. As a kid, Dad always had a garden, so at least I had some working knowledge to begin with. Then I built a chicken coop and I bought some hens for eggs. My wife, Miss Sarah, vetoed raising them as meat birds though, so they were strictly egg hens. Also, I began collecting other prepping supplies as I recognized the need for them, as well as developing other useful skills. One thing I learned early on is that I desperately wanted to be away from the city, especially being on the outskirts of Houston. Being retired by then, I got even more serious about leaving there. As luck or serendipity would have it, our daughter and son-in-law had purchased a ranch about 100 miles north of there. We liked the country around there, so we began looking for a place to live, and we found a very nice little house on a couple of acres, not far from the kids' ranch. After living there for several years, I suffered a couple of minor strokes, and I guess that explains the mild speech impediment I still have today. Thankfully, other than that and some loss of strength and coordination in my left hand, I suffered no lasting ill effects. Of course, arthritis slows me down too some, but otherwise I still do pretty much what I've always done, just a little slower. Our daughter was always worrying about me, especially since I refused to take life easy after that. So she decided that we needed to be even closer to her and offered, or pretty much insisted, that we build a house on the ranch and move there. And so here we are, and I absolutely love it. I have a lot more room for a garden and my chickens. And what's here, I built a barn for my tractor and my hoard of tools, and I was a happy camper. But the best part of it is I can pursue my prepper dreams to my heart's content. I have nearly 400 acres to roam. I help with the herd of cows, and I have a nice pond within a stone's throw from the house. The builder was going to have to haul in some dirt to build a pad for the house, and I told him, you can get their dirt right out there where that little creek runs through. So voila, a pond happened. It's now stocked with catfish, crappie, and perch. A neighbor boy caught a nice 3-pound catfish out of it just the other day. Needless to say, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I had the run of the ranch, and I do what I can to help out. I spent several years of my childhood living in a country, and those were the happiest years of my young life. And now I'm living my dream. But as for life as an aging prepper, I have to say that my priorities have changed somewhat. Oh, I still store up all the things a prepper usually stores. I guess the biggest change is skill development. What I mean by that is I tend to concentrate more on my chickens and my gardening than my bushcraft skills. Or if I had to, I could start a fire with a ferro rod and steel, or shoot a deer for meat. But now I just tell my son-in-law I want some backstrap. You know, one might wonder why I even do those things at my age. And the answer is that my priorities have shifted in another way as well. Every day I live is another day closer to the end of the road for me. But I have my children. I have 4 grandchildren and a great-grandchild that might possibly survive a little longer with the stores I leave behind and the knowledge I have hopefully passed on to them. So I'll never stop prepping as long as I can get around. And the Lord willing, I still have a few more years left in me. Miss Sarah and our daughter still worry about me, especially since a rambunctious cow knocked me down in the pasture a couple of times. But it's like I tell them, you know, if I'm working out in my garden one day and fall over dead with a heart attack, I'll die a happy man. So, if you're an aging prepper like me, you just have to acknowledge your limitations and keep on doing what you can. Your priorities might have to change like mine have, but don't stop doing what you can. If you just sit down, you'll die an unfulfilled and unhappy death. You know, the name of my channel is Old Preppers Never Die. But the unspoken part is, we'll just turn into compost, which is still very much alive and gives life to others. Folks, if you found this video useful or encouraging, hit that like button if you will. And be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already so you can be notified when we post new content. So this is the old Piney Woods Prepper saying, take care, my friends. God bless, and be safe out there.